whoop. We're recording.
There we go. Are you good?
I'm good.
You ready to do this?
Our first debrief.
Welcome to the DC Travelcast. My name is Don.
And I'm Crystal.
And today we're going to be sharing our overall thoughts, insights, and tips from our recent trip to Indonesia. By the way, this is a brand new video series and we want to hear from you. So please like, comment, share, subscribe. Show us that algorithmic love. So other than that, let's get started. Hey, how you doing? Our BFT or beverage for today is Luwak coffee. That's right, it's Luwak coffee. It's an Indonesian specialty brought to you by the colons of the Indonesian civet. It's dark.
It's rich.
And delicious. What we'd like to do to start things off might be helpful to give you an overview of the trip itself. It was the end of June over the 4th of July holiday, and it was 11 days throughout Indonesia. We started in Bali for 2 nights based out of Ubud. We explored rice terraces, villages, and waterfalls, including the popular Mount Batur sunrise. From there, we moved on to Flores for 2 nights and based out of Labuan Bajo to snorkel, hike, and chase Komodo dragons. From there, Central Java for 3 nights. We based out of Yogyakarta and we explored some notable temples, volcanoes, and caves in the surrounding area. From there, wrapped things up Eastern Java for 3 nights based out of Malang to explore some colorful neighborhoods, some notable waterfalls, and yet another brilliant sunrise at Mount Bromo. For more information, as well as where we stayed, what we did, how we did it, all the details, all the links, pics, and reviews, check out our detailed daily itinerary we've linked below, as well as it's available on traveldispatch.com. And how much is it, you might ask? It is, of course, free 99. We're running a special today. Buy none, get one. That's right. Traveldispatch.com. Check it out. Moving on. Our first destination in Indonesia, Bali. Memorable, favorite experiences, Crystal?
Definitely Mount Batur hike and sunrise. It actually evoked emotion.
Ooh.
Yeah, and
Tell
so it was a beautiful sunrise. We were overlooking the villages below, some water, off in the distance, kind of a mountain ridge. And it just really made me appreciate just pausing and understanding how to be in the present moment. And just, it's a new day. It was just beautiful.
Anything else?
No, that was it.
I'd say for me, above and beyond Mount Batur and the sunrise there, which was awesome, we were very skeptical. It was a very gravelly uphill switchbacks up there, very foggy. When we arrived there, I was skeptical of whether or not we'd be able to see anything, but the clouds were moving quick. The fog opened up just enough, right on time for sunrise, and it was absolutely breathtaking and beautiful. Above and beyond that, I'd say the exploring the countryside by scooter, motorbike, what have you, 2 wheels, definitely. Thought that was pretty awesome, being able to check out those little villages, be able to stop and explore waterfalls along the way on our own schedule, of course. Another thing that I thought was really interesting about Bali, I had very low expectations because
You did.
I'm not really into the whole Instagram, influencer scene, and it seems like that's a hub of all of that activity. There are probably more staged Instagram spots that I've ever seen anywhere in the world.
Indonesia definitely won that.
They've got all the spots for you to take your photos. There may be a fee associated, but that aside, all of that noise and hubbub aside, I think that there's a depth, right? This is the Hindu center of a predominantly Muslim country, and there's a sort of a cultural depth and layers to it that I didn't think was there. But when you start to explore it, there's definitely a lot more to Bali culturally and just depth-wise than you see on Instagram. So That's some of my memorable favorite experiences. Any challenges or disappointments on your side?
Yeah, definitely. I know that you're going to talk about traffic because that was definitely a challenge.
I didn't notice any traffic.
I think for me, and you mentioned this, is the having to pay to and stand in queue for pictures. Don and I are very kind of road trippy. We really like to be on our own schedule. Although I appreciated the engagement from our guides and just them helping us pose for pictures, for me personally, that was really distracting from just being in the moment. You know, I like to be in the moment and just really like to appreciate what's in front of me. And so to constantly have the taking of photos, creating videos, making us pose multiple times, that was just really distracting. And it definitely took away from the overall experience.
Yeah, I think a lot of the guide activity there, they'll take photos for you, they'll offer to do those things. I think it's because that's what they think that you want, but not all people who are visiting Bali or Indonesia in general want that.
Yeah, it almost made it awkward sometimes because you and I have like 1 to 2 poses.
Yeah,
and they were
expecting
expecting like 6
poses.
or 7
Yeah.
poses maybe. But they're the nicest people, and I so appreciated the engagement. It just wasn't necessarily for us.
Circle back where you started, traffic. What, according to Google Maps, should take about an hour's drive from the DPS airport on Bali to our hotel in Ubud? About an hour it should take. However, it took us 2.5 hours. My perspective is that there are too many cars. There needs to be a restriction on cars, trucks, and predominantly focus on motorbikes. Because although it's not as congested, I guess, in the northern and central areas of Bali, there's still too much traffic there. The infrastructure is not designed for that much volume, and motorbikes, survival of the fittest, could go a long way there. Crystal, how about you just give me just the tip or tips? Any tips, recommendations for people going?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, we were only in Bali for 2 full days, 2 nights. I think I would have appreciated 1 more day. I do have more of that desire to look at the shops and maybe do like a yoga class, really get into the Hindu side of Bali. And we just didn't get a chance to do that. So I would have liked 1 more day.
Definitely, I agree with that. Again, I had low expectations for Bali. We only had 11 days. I prioritized other locations above Bali. If we had more time, I would definitely add at least another day to Bali. Make sure that you take some time to really be able to slow down, enjoy the culture, do some cultural activities. I know that yoga is a big hot spot because of the Hindu background or cultural influence there. Do some water ceremonies, check out some more temples, some more villages. Like I mentioned earlier, a little bit more depth to Bali than people give it credit for or that Instagram advertises it as. So I definitely would say spend an extra day or so, check out some more cultural activities. And also, if you are comfortable on 2 wheels and if you are comfortable with traffic, explore by motorbike. You have your own time frame to deal with, you have flexibility to explore different places. Motorbike, definitely the way to go. And it's an exciting adventure because if you've never flowed like water through traffic, this is your opportunity. Bali, check it out. Flores, Labuan Bajo. Memorable, favorite experiences?
I mean, clearly the Komodo dragons was a hit, but I would say the view at Padar Island after that hike was just stunning and beautiful. It was panoramic views of just big islands and water. Again, it was just very zen and breathtaking for me.
Yeah, Padar Island, fantastic landscape, great views. Once you get up there, it's not too challenging of a hike up there. What is challenging are the volume of people that get there. So earlier in the morning, the better. I think they come in waves in regards to people, and we might have arrived after the sunrise wave was there, but there was a stream of people up and down that one pathway to all the different sites. There were some confrontations perhaps with people getting in other people's shops. So that's sort of maybe a double edge there.
Yeah.
Fantastic island, great views, a little congested, But Komodo dragons have been a bucket list animal that I've had on my list for quite a while, so I was excited to go and see those fat bastards. They are, like, you think a monitor lizard's pretty big, but these guys, they're fat beefcakes. When they get up and they start walking, they're like, ugh. I think every Komodo dragon should be issued a wife beater tank top, maybe some gold chains.
I don't think that that's appropriate.
Wife beater, am I gonna get canceled?
anymore.
I'm just saying, maybe a white, tight tank top for every Komodo dragon. That's my platform. Maybe some gold chains, gold teeth, maybe too far. Notable challenges, disappointments?
I had none for this location. Granted, we were only there for really a full day. I thought the tour company was amazing. Just education, just their personalities, the time that we got to spend on the boat, on the beach, you guys snorkeling. I unfortunately wasn't able to snorkel because of a medical issue, but I still really enjoyed the activities that day.
I'm not a big tour company kind of guy, but this tour company, they did a really good job. It was a nice balanced itinerary where we had some hiking, we had some snorkeling, we had Komodo dragons, there was boat time. The boat was nice, well accommodated. It had an outdoor area which had shade. It had a canvas top there so you wouldn't get all crispy throughout the day. And it also had a cabin with air conditioning if you want to be inside and keep cool. So I think they did a really good job with their equipment and itinerary for the entire day. It was nicely balanced. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot. We weren't there for very long, but any tips? Just the tips?
Yeah, you know, especially if you actually get off the boat and go to the Komodo Dragon Island, I think just understanding that these are wild and dangerous animals. So just respecting their space and respecting the guides that are with you while you're on the island.
Yeah, that's a good call. You'll find throughout Indonesia, you'll have your main tour company and they'll be your guide, but every location has a local guide. It kind of helps to spread the wealth in regards to tourism. It's not just the main tour company, but the local guides and folks that are within those different attractions and areas. If we had another night, another dinner or lunch in Labuan Bajo, I would say the fish market. They had all these different vendors along the boardwalk by the water. They all had their displays of rainbow colored fish. Pretty awesome. You pick out your fish, they'll bring it out back. They have a grill there. They'll throw some seasoning on it. They'll prepare an entire meal for you and you can eat it right there on the beach, shot at a picnic table. So if we had another meal, definitely would check that out.
That's a good one.
Yeah. All right, Central Java, Yogyakarta. Memorable, favorite experiences there?
I thought all the temples, just all of them.
All the temples.
All the temples.
All the temples.
Just the history and the amount of effort it has to take to build a temple. Each temple that we visited was just unique in their own way. So that was my highlight. The other thing was really being able to taste the range of coffee and the herbal teas. As Don mentioned, especially Yogyakarta, they are mostly Muslims, so coffee and tea is a big way to socialize with each other. And so I think we got a taste of that.
Yeah, big tea and coffee culture there. More on the tea side, I think.
Yeah.
But all the temples, specifically Borobudur, I'd say we tried to do a sunrise. That didn't work out so well. Unfortunately, the day we went, it was a pouring steady rain the entire morning.
It was a beautiful rainstorm.
It was a beautiful view of the clouds and rain and getting all nice and wet. You know, anybody can tour Borobudur around the temple grounds, but there are only a certain number of tickets they allow for you to actually climb up the temple and explore the different levels. That was pretty cool, being able to go up there, fewer people. Don't get me wrong, there's still gonna be people, so you gotta time, if you're into photography, time your shots and all that good stuff. Borobudur was a highlight for me. Jablong Cave, which is kind of the Instagram famous cave that you've got these shafts of light that come down from a hole in the ceiling and you can see people's silhouette there. I have to admit, it was a pretty cool experience. The way to get there though is to be lowered down into basically a sinkhole, which is 60 meters, 150 feet or so. And you're just basically hanging from a rope and you've got these guys just like shimmying you down and you're just dangling from a rope. That was a unique way to enter a cave. Both that and Borobudur, they have sort of a first come, first serve in regards to entrance. So I'd say get there early for those activities because it definitely pays off. Fun fact, highest per capita number of World War II Jeeps. We're talking old school Willys Jeeps. The old, I'm about to get poisoned from this exhaust kind of Jeep, or I'm about to like bounce out of the back of this tiny little short wheelbase Jeep. All of them in the world are located at Mount Merapi, a volcano in central Java.
That we did not get to see because it was cloudy.
Again, overcast, did not see it. So
but I hear it's beautiful.
I've seen pictures. With that, let's spin it to challenges, disappointments.
You've already touched on mine. Mine was really the overcrowding of the temples. It was challenging to really just get your pictures as well as just enjoy it. It was just like you were constantly being bumped and kind of like cattle, like just one after the other. So I think to your point, it's like get there as early as possible, get tickets if you can so that you are able to explore where you want to.
That's a good call out. Look, anywhere beautiful in the world, any popular attraction, you're gonna have people. So the best you can do is go early, go late, and work around it. So other challenges, disappointments, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but the sunrise weather, can't really do anything about that unless you have more flexibility and you can go on a different day. Pindal Cave, that was a cave where you get the tube through it, and it's kind of nice. It's a nice cave. We've seen better caves, but we didn't get the tube through them, I guess. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it was not worth doing, but if you had to choose between that and something else, like Jablon Cave, could have done without Pindal, but no regrets, right? I'm glad we did it. Prambanan was super crowded. We also went a little bit later in the day. It detracts a little bit from the experience. Between Borobudur and Prambanan, probably liked Borobudur, maybe a little bit better, but just the tips.
I think this could be for all of Indonesia, but particularly in the activities that we did around Yogyakarta, definitely wearing comfortable and versatile shoes, because to what you were just sharing, we were hiking through waterfalls, we were walking through caves, we were walking the streets of Yogyakarta. So just making sure that you're wearing footwear that can kind of go everywhere, from like walking, climbing, and potentially either waterproof or water resistant.
Definitely a rain jacket. If you have waterproof pants, the combination of those would definitely help if there's unforeseen weather. I'd say probably recommended wearing one of those hiking based sandals. I've got a pair by Merrell, worked out great for all of our hiking, where you want something that's going to protect your feet, but you also want it so you can go through the water with it. Got those, I'll link them below. How about that? Bring a towel, change of clothing.
Yeah, I think the waterfalls in Indonesia, you interact with them versus other locations that have more of like strong flowing or fierce waterfalls. The waterfalls here, they're beautiful, they're very interactive. So you're like walking through them and walking under them and to your point, walking through the streams leading up to them. So you are gonna get wet.
Yeah, we're migrating over to Eastern Java now. Malang was where we based out of. Memorable favorite experiences in that area?
This was really hard because Malang ended up being my favorite location. It was primarily the people of Malang, just incredibly friendly, especially at an end of a trip when you're kind of getting worn down, and we were both kind of dealing with our own sicknesses a little bit. So just having very friendly, very helpful people is just always a great thing. But Mount Bromo sunrise and the volcano and crater exploration was just really awesome.
Malang, I think we both agree, was our favorite city that we stayed in throughout the entire trip. Colorful neighborhoods. It had character. When we first landed there, it has this sort of Air Force military kind of feel to it. You see some of their equipment at the airport. You drive through town and you can see some of the memorials and statues that they have. But once you get into the actual city itself, it's not just a base town. There's a little bit more character to it. They've got the colorful neighborhoods there. Tumpak Siwu, that was fantastic. That was really cool. Not only is it like when you get down to the waterfall area, are you in this valley, you're just surrounded in this amphitheater of cascading waterfalls. You're hiking through streams. You're hiking through waterfalls that are just cascading. Our local guide there was awesome. He knew all the angles. This guy was like taking our phones and taking pictures, doing video. But the coolest thing was that in addition to capturing some stuff on our phones, he was taking some pictures and video on his own, like with his own phone. On the walk back, about 20 minutes or so, he edited it an entire video. He stitched together video clips, photos. He had a music background. The guy made a video. He edited a video on the way back and then sent it to us. Nobody does. I've never seen a guy.
And part
do
of that
something
hike
like
was
that.
like straight back up
Yeah,
a
he's just
hill.
like,
And he's like walking up a hill editing a video.
I know, I'm like, what, this guy's on his phone, he's checking his texts, he's sending an email, maybe he's trading stocks, I don't know what this guy's doing. And then he's like, oh, I made a video for you. What? So that was super cool. And obviously Mount Bromo, probably top 10 sunrises, colors, just the landscape from the sunrise, the beautiful colors. You look over and then you see the multiple cones of volcanoes that just look fake. They're so beautiful. That was like a real highlight. Another fun fact. The highest number of classic land cruisers, tons of them. It was like the rainbow of color, the Skittles of land cruisers in the world are there around Mount Bromo.
Yeah.
If you're looking for any color land cruiser, it's there. You'll find it. Challenges, disappointments?
I really tried to find one and I couldn't. It just didn't disappoint whatsoever for me.
Yeah, I don't have anything specifically around Malang or the
Maybe
area.
the donut.
We did have a durian donut from Dunkin' Donuts. We popped into a Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, we were getting coffee.
We're getting coffee.
And
from
we
a
saw
Dunkin'
that there was a durian donut. Neither one of us have tried durian before.
Oh, it wasn't my favorite donut. I'll say that for the record.
You mentioned it tasted like onions. I got the dirty feet smell, like the smelly feet.
Delicious. Yeah, nothing against Malang or the surrounding area. The only thing that I would say is maybe this is a logistics issue for me from a trip planner's standpoint. There is train travel between Yogyakarta and Malang. It didn't work out. I think timing wise, it was on a certain day that it was available. We couldn't find any direct flights from Yogyakarta to Malang. So we had to connect through Jakarta, which is the opposite direction. So going from central Java to western Java to eastern Java, it was a little bit more time than I would have liked in the airport for that day. So in hindsight, tightening that up, timing it so you can take the train overnight so you don't waste a day, or just trying to find a direct flight from Yogyakarta to Malang. But any other tips that you'd like to pull out?
Yeah, and you actually reminded me of one, and I think this just isn't for Indonesia, but for any international travel, making sure that you have the WhatsApp. That is really the primary way I think we're realizing, especially this year in our travels, is that your guides and drivers and even hotel pickups and things like that, they use the WhatsApp versus texting. So that's just like a tip that I'm gonna throw out there. I would say specific to Malang is explore Malang, walk the streets, visit the villages. Don't be afraid to get into the villages, but just be prepared that you're probably gonna pay a small fee to enter some of those villages.
Yeah, 100% worth it. When we say small fee, it's less than a US dollar.
Yeah.
Right, to get into the villages, the rainbow villages, as well as the blue village. Absolutely 100% worth any fee to give back to the folks that are living in those neighborhoods. Again, I mentioned it earlier as far as tips. Bring a swimsuit, a towel, change of clothes for tumpak, as well as Madakaripura. Madakaripura falls. On the other side, I'd say a buff or a mask for Mount Bromo.
That's a good call.
Super dry conditions.
Yeah, that's a great
more
call.
arid than, I mean, it's like the southwest of the United States, but like drier. It was just very dusty.
Like you could feel your skin drying.
It was definitely a different atmosphere. You could physically feel how dry it was.
Yeah.
It's like the moisture is just evaporating from
And
you.
you're just getting hit by the sun because there is no shade. And so I think like it just makes it feel even drier.
Let's wrap this up. Final thoughts to the trip. I'd say overall surprises or insights from the trip.
Yeah, so for me, a surprise was I had a lot of people wanting to take pictures with me or like get in front of me and try to take a selfie. And what we learned is that Americans, they really think we're all celebrities, which obviously we're not, but it was fun. Like I just enjoyed it. I took pictures with people. And then the only other thing I would say that I think was a surprise for us was just the number of guides. It seemed like we would have a driver and we would have a guide with the driver, but then we would be handed off to another group of guides for the actual activity. And so if you are going to tip, it's just something to consider that you're gonna have to tip multiple people versus assuming that you're only tipping one.
Yeah, tipping is interesting there as well, because some people were like appreciative and like expected it, but just it seemed like a normal thing. And other people surprised. They were like, oh, okay, sure, I will take your money. I didn't actually look to see like normal tipping practices there, but
tipping in Indonesia is not expected, but if you do tip, what I read was around 10%. And that's kind of what we were doing. But understanding too, like the American dollar to the Indonesian, it's
100,000 Indonesian rupiah, or $6. US.
Yeah, and so it felt right, and the guides were great. They were really great. So I felt it was worth tipping.
If you need a reset, Indonesia is a place to go because people are so kind and nice. Another thing is Bali is Indonesia, but Indonesia is not Bali. There's a big difference. Bali was very unique because it is a Hindu-based island. Again, like I mentioned earlier, a little bit more depth there. And I think Crystal touched on it in regards to the different folks that are involved with the tours. Some of your tours that you may organize outside through Viator or other tour companies, when they say there's a tour, there's a guide or a driver, sometimes that driver is a guide. Sometimes that driver is just a driver who doesn't speak a lot of English. Sometimes the guide is more of a fixer. They get you there and they connect you with the local guides. They're not providing any additional information. So there's sort of like a continuum of services, I suppose, in regards to the people who may be labeled as guides or drivers along the way. Any final tips? Any like suggestions?
I'm thinking about a couple things actually, and again, not just specific to Indonesia, but I think just in general, downloading Google Maps to really make sure that if we do need it, we have it. And then also downloading the native language from Google Translate. I know I did that this time around and I used it quite a bit. So those are just two kind of like tips for any type of international trip that may not speak English.
I was very glad that prior to the trip to Indonesia, we did go and visit our travel nurse, and we had our emergency, I'd like to call it nuclear just in case meds. If you've got some digestive issues, I did have some digestive issues along the way, where you're not gonna pop a couple Imodium or a Pepto and it's gonna be like, oh, this feels much better. No, this is like, there's something inside of me and it's eating me from inside. I need to drop the bomb and destroy everything in there, and that's what I did.
That's too much.
It's just the right amount. Sometimes you gotta drop the bomb to stop the chaos. And it did. 2 days, right as rain. I think another thing, Gojek and Grab.
Yeah.
It's an app or two apps. They are basically Indonesia's Uber. If you want Uber Eats, if you want like anything delivered, if you want to be brought anywhere, they don't do taxis. Even hotels, they were ordering through those apps. So I'd say download those apps before you go and leverage those. They're cheaper, so
significantly
100%,
cheaper.
100% Gojek or Grab apps. Download those.
So the other thing that I would be prepared for is there's a significant temperature fluctuation between like inside and outside, like airport, freezing cold, hotel rooms, freezing. And even though it's incredibly warm and humid in a sense outside, just making sure that you are dressing properly, because I did not, and I ended up getting kind of a throat and sinus issue new. And so I had to really deal with that probably the last half of our trip. But with that being said, if you do get an unexpected illness, I think using their local pharmacies, which are, I believe it's pronounced apotheques.
Apothec?
Apotheques.
Something
I don't
like
know.
that.
Yeah.
Google it.
But, I actually think any pharmacy outside of the US has been incredibly helpful for me because I typically do get some type of sinus
Yeah, they're
illness
super helpful.
when we travel.
One thing I'd say, airports. Airports in Indonesia, they range the gamut. Domestic terminals, particularly, you will have no information of any use. The airlines provide no information if a flight changes gates, if a flight is delayed. There's like no information. The boards, they're not dynamic. They're just carrying out what the original schedule is. They're like, oh, you're in flight. No, I'm not. I'm sitting in the terminal right now. It's like, oh, you've boarded. Oh, you're in flight. Like, no. So it's completely useless.
And just be prepared, like if you do ask their customer service reps, they don't know.
They don't know
either. And so that can get frustrating.
But don't worry, there are plenty of them, at least a half a dozen people who won't know anything.
But to your point, like relax, just take a deep breath, read a book,
I don't know.
Listen to a podcast, use that time to reflect, to journal. But you're gonna be delayed. How many times were we delayed?
Batik Airlines, not my favorite in the world. Out of 7 flights, how many do you think were on time? If you guessed 0, that's correct. 0 for 7 for on-time departures. I mean, I greatly appreciate United Airlines now, just because, I mean, they're usually about 50%. But 0? Not one flight you could depart on time? Ridiculous. And add in the 0 information at the airport. So tip, try to minimize your time at the airports. I mean, they're islands, so you gotta bounce between the islands. And if you're looking for something that's relatively quick, it's usually a plane, maybe there's a boat, maybe you could take a train, within Java or something like that, but yeah.
The other thing confusing about Batik is that there's multiple domestic airlines that are all umbrellaed under Batik. Or the Lion. Okay, yeah, the Lion Group.
Yeah.
And so when you're at the airport, it can be rather confusing because
check-in.
You just don't know where to go for check-in, and there's not a lot of assistance.
One last tip, build in time to relax, to reflect, to document, take notes. I do this every trip. I take notes at the end of the day. I try to make sure that I'm jotting things down because I don't remember things. So I need to make notes, and when you're traveling, you don't necessarily understand everything as it's happening. It sometimes needs some time to percolate, and those notes can help you better understand it later, perhaps. Build in some time, take some notes. Those are my last tips. Well, there you go. There it is. So please, brand new video series, show us some algorithmic love by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. If you've ever been or want to go to Indonesia, we want to see and hear your insights down in the comments section. So please, questions, advice, suggestions, all of that, throw it down there. Visit traveldispatch.com for our detailed itineraries, as well as our custom Google Maps, photos and videos. And lastly, thanks so much for joining us on our first and hopefully not last
DC Travelcast.
DC Travelcast.
Good job, babe.
All right, that's it. Wrap it.
Bye, we're out.
Desi,
Desi.
clean it up.